In reality, we're missing a trick with lots of Chinese and Asian populations. We're missing the Chinese and Asian populations that are already in Europe and in Ireland. Asia Matters recently, we sponsored a Trinity College Asian Bowl and met hundreds of young Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Indian, etc. And what was very, very interesting is there were 3 student communities at the Trinity College Bowl. One were Asian students studying here. The others were people like my children, who are Asian Irish. My wife is Japanese, so our children are Irish and Japanese, European and Asian. And the third were friends of Asia. And what surprised me the most were the Asian students and people like my children, the Asian Irish students, because when they graduate, all the family comes from China or Japan or somewhere else. And I asked some of the students, where are you going for graduation? They said, don't know yet, somewhere in Ireland. But nobody in Ireland is saying to them, right guys, you're bringing your family, you're going to graduate in Trinity or any other university in Ireland. Here's all the options for 3 nights anywhere in Ireland. There was one group, came recently, some Japanese people, I sent them to Cork, thank you to Ireland, the Metropole Hotel, basically said, how much time do you have in Cork? No time. We would do an early train, arrive in Cork. I said, that's fine. Okay, arrive in. Want to do lunch? I said, great. Go to the Long Valley, an institution. It's a pub in Cork, an institution in itself. Go to the English market in the afternoon. Lots of food things by night. They had no time the next day, so I said, basically, visit. They were getting a very early train, couldn't even go to St. Finbarr's Cathedral. I just said, they wanted to see a nice church. I said, go to St. Peter and Paul's Church. They actually did it all, and then had an early train the next day. So you can pack a lot in. They were super impressed by the food, the friendly people, the range of amazing restaurants. There you go. But there's no options for people like that. And also, speaking more broadly, forgive me, Ambassador, I don't know the Chinese populations in Europe, but here in Ireland, there's approximately 50,000 Chinese people in Ireland, including 5,000 students. They all have friends, they all have relatives. If you look, okay, let me quote the Japanese different phrase of reference. There's 50,000 Japanese diaspora, mainly expats and their families, living in London. There's 60,000 between Frankfurt and Dusseldorf. There's another 60,000 broadly around the Paris region. Nobody's targeting them to come to Ireland. And all these people, when they go abroad for a few years with their companies, what do they want to do? They want to see as much as Europe as possible for the 3 years normally. They're like ambassadors. 3 years normally, sometimes extended, max 5. And nobody's targeting them. They come through word of mouth. So with respect to our friends in Tourism Ireland, I think Tourism Ireland in UK and Germany and France and other markets should be targeting the local Asian population, saying, come to Ireland, much, much closer. Maybe we should, as you said, maybe we should extend, why don't we reciprocally have a 15-day free visa for Chinese people to visit Ireland? That would solve lots of the problems. We do get the challenges of visas, but honestly, it can be a mess. Maybe in the next event, we did an event before with the Department of Justice, maybe our next event, we'll have an honest discussion about visas. I recently was in the very embarrassing situation that I am the Honorary Consul of Indonesia here, in the absence of an ambassador. There's no ambassador. C'est moi. Apa kabar? Saya Martin. Dari Cork. My own ambassador, who was speaking at an event we did in Limerick, told me about midnight the night before, and he was due the next morning, that his diplomatic visa hadn't been renewed. He's an ambassador accredited to Ireland. Can you imagine? Thankfully, I heard it the night before. As you can imagine, there was somewhat of a scramble, and to be fair, the good people in Foreign Affairs, etc., we got it sorted out by the next morning, but that's not what these things shouldn't happen, I don't understand why ambassadors who are accredited to our country, no matter that they physically reside in London, why they don't automatically have the right to come and go as they please. Maybe it's me, I don't understand the internals. Visas can be a mess, as you said, Ambassador. And there's also a funny side to it. I like to be positive. I remember when I was invited to speak in Mongolia, economic event in Ulaanbaatar, and I was in Tokyo beforehand, and all the Japanese said, whatever you do, do not apply for a tourist visa to Mongolia. It's a nightmare. It'll take you months. They won't let you in. And I said, what do I do? And I had heard this beforehand. Go as a business person. There's no visa for business people. So I went in a small plane from Tokyo, arrived in the international airport of Ulaanbaatar, which is a tiny airport, and I was in a long coat and a suit behind all the Japanese businessmen in their long coats and suits. And when I arrived at the visa desk, I said, "What's your reason for visiting Mongolia?" Sorry. And I said, "Business." "Great. You're not a tourist?" "No." "Okay, go." You know, I mean, and I was even warned, do not dress casually because you could have a problem. It's crazy stuff, you know. So let's get into this session. Now, this session, we're gone a bit over time, so we'll try and pull it back. We're going to look in this session, okay, which is a higher education panel on creating sustainable tourism leaders. We're going to look at 7 items, talking to the panel in advance. The first thing we're going to look at is talent. Talent is very important. We're going to look at reputation of the industry itself and what that means. We're going to look at leadership skills. There's a lot of good work happening in leadership skills. We're going to look beyond the leadership skills itself. We're going to look at the whole area of regenerative tourism, which is quite interesting. We're going to look at China competency and the need to actually understand people. We will fail as a country if we do not have China competent leaders in any industry. How can you talk to your customers if you don't understand them? I do apologize, we're booming by my own terrible Chinese, and it's about that respect. And we're going to talk, of course, about sustainability, which, as we've said already, and we're guided by you, Paul, and other leaders in this, it's not just about the environment, it's about so much more. Economics, community, everything. Okay, so with respect, let's get straight into it. Not going to introduce the panel because that would delay us. You've seen the program, and we'll start straight with you, Sarah. Sarah Dolly is the head of tourism careers at Fáilte Ireland. Sarah, we had a conversation in advance. We spoke about, what's driving the industry now. Fáilte Ireland is responsible for the development of the tourism sector. Could you outline kind of your priorities within the context of this and see how perhaps we might link it into China and the return of Chinese tourism?
Absolutely. Thanks, Martin, and thanks for having me here today. So I'm the head of tourism careers at Fáilte Ireland, and I sit within the wider sector development directorate. And I suppose our remit very much is on building a very agile, responsive, competitive industry, and tourism careers really is central to that. So, Fáilte Ireland's focus in the years ahead is very much on driving the sustainable development of tourism right across the country. So what does that look like for Ireland? It means that Ireland and the industry will be more economically resilient, regionally spread, seasonally spread, and an industry that consistently delivers on its climate action targets, whilst offering an excellent visitor experience to visitors from all parts of the world, and contributes to local communities. And really central to that is offering excellent careers. And the reason I highlight this is because it's the first time that tourism careers have been called out so prominently in Fáilte Ireland's plans, which really is, it's a no-brainer, because without a skilled and educated workforce, without the ability of the industry to attract a skilled and educated and talented workforce, we wouldn't be able to deliver on the wider parts of these plans. So our work around tourism careers really strengthened post-pandemic, when there was a mass exodus of skills right across the sector. There was a real reputation challenge which long pre-existed the pandemic, but was exacerbated even further. Our colleagues here in MTU will attest to that too. There's been a decline in students entering into further and higher education as well. So there was quite a few challenges that had pre-existed but were even worse after the pandemic. So we developed a kind of wide-ranging tourism careers strategy that is still very much evolving, and it focuses on 3 key areas. So the first at the time was on supporting the recruitment of the industry. There was 40,000 vacancies at the time, and it was really impeding businesses' ability to get back to full capacity. So we put a range of measures in place to help businesses recruit both now and into the future, and also to build their capability in terms of being able to attract skilled talent in a highly competitive labour market. And the second area is supporting the upskilling of staff as well. The recent report by Sulis demonstrated how many new people have entered the sector since the pandemic, and that's reinforced in our own Fáilte Ireland research as well. 1 in 3 people to the industry have been new since, and that really underlines the kind of skills gaps that's there, and it's still very much there. So we do some kind of initial upskilling to help induction, and right through to some professional development of management roles as well. And a key focus now and over the next year or so is trying to point out the range of professional development courses that are available across further and higher education too. And then the third area, and this is the one that's really critical, changing reputations of the sector. We do that in a number of ways. We have one program of work that looks at kind of the future pipeline of talent, and we have a range of initiatives in place to target second level students, their career influencers such as guidance counsellors and teachers, as well as parents, job seekers across the economy. And we've wide-ranging marketing campaigns and communications initiatives there, but none of them would stand up without demonstrating that there's authentic change on the ground and that the industry in the last few years in particular has become a much better employer than it's been. And Fáilte Ireland launched the Employer Excellence Programme to help employers kind of continuously enhance their workplace, build on good employee engagement, and really just to showcase the fact that there is brilliant employment. There's people who have long, rewarding careers in tourism. There's excellent employers right across the country, and this programme really is about showing that the employee voice is front and centre of it, so it's authentic, and that there are good employers. And through these measures, as well as measures from our colleagues right across the ecosystem, we're seeing great change in the space of just 2 years. 88% of people looking to join the sector or already in the sector see tourism as a long-term career choice. So that's up almost 20% since the pandemic. And recruitment and retention difficulties have eased, but there's no time to rest on our laurels. As I said, we're not attracting the numbers we need to into further and higher education. We're in a highly competitive labour market, so we have to kind of continue to look, as a wider ecosystem at how we can continue to evolve and attract the future generation of talent.
Okay, very, very interesting. As you can see, I didn't get mic'd up myself. I feel I'm going back to my original career as an academic. Nothing wrong here. Can I ask, just a show of hands, how many people here work in the tourism sector? Put up your hand if you work in tourism. Interesting. Okay. How many people here deliberately worked in the tourism sector and planned it all along? 2, 3. Interesting. Sarah, why are you in the tourism sector?
Well, yeah, it's a good question. I started out in communications, so it definitely wasn't a direct career path. But I think when I was actually in London, when I was coming back to Ireland, I thought to myself that I would love to work for Fáilte Ireland or Tourism Ireland. They were my two own career ambitions. And it was because, I see how important tourism is to Ireland, and I see it as a really exciting, people-focused entrepreneurial industry. So I definitely always saw it as a place that would be brilliant to work.
Very, very interesting. Could we get a mic there as well out to people? Mary Rose, why tourism for you?
I grew up on a farm in Rossler Harbour. So we had a guest house, a bed and breakfast, and so as all the tourists came into the harbour, I worked in the sector from an early age. But I knew I wanted to be a hotel manager, and I went to Carl Brew Street and studied hotel management and worked in the industry for 15 years before I came to MTU and led the hospitality and tourism department there.
And what was the attraction? Was it meeting people from all over the world, just opening the mind, different experiences?
I think it goes back to what we said earlier on. It's about that welcome, isn't it? And you want visitors to your country to have a fabulous experience. So it's about making sure that they do have that experience and being very proud of sharing our heritage. So I think it was just that innate love for sharing our Irish culture, maybe, and our hospitality.
Good for you. Interesting. Could we get one to Aisling? I just want to ask Aisling an open mic, please. Aisling, why are you in tourism?
Well, a little bit like Sarah, I fell into the tourism sector, but I've been in it for 15 years and absolutely love what I do. Like selling the island of Ireland overseas, being able to sell your country to other people, show the warm welcome, all the plethora of unique things to see and uniquely Irish things to see and do. But prior to Tourism Ireland, I was also in the Marriott Group as part of the rebrand project of the Shelbourne Hotel. So I have been in hospitality for a long time, but it wasn't what I did in college. I did social science in UCD and then a master's in marketing. So the marketing falls in with Tourism Ireland because that is our job.
So it's interesting people from communications marketing background find a natural home in tourism, because as you say, they need to have leadership in it. And it's just so interesting. And Owen, did you deliberately start in tourism? Forgive me, I'm just trying to get a sense. So.
My mother had a successful travel and tourism business, but I went to college. I did economics and politics in Trinity, so I'm perfectly geared to take over from Michael McGrath when he finishes up. And then I did Diageo for a few years, but I did go into the travel and tourism business, which we ended up selling, and I stayed in tourism after that. My mother was kind of a trailblazer in tourism in the 1980s and 90s, so it was kind of in my genes.
Well, Owen, you had to mention your mother. Like the mother is sacred in every culture in the world, so I think we won't ask anyone else, because now that your mother has been brought into the discussion, all hail the wonderful mothers of the world. Okay, let's move it on. When we were preparing earlier, and we're talking, as you rightly said, you talked about driving that sustainability, the whole talent piece, the recruitment, upskilling, reputation. Reputation is an issue, clearly. When Asia Matters started 12 years ago, and like all new organisations, we put together a board of very committed senior people. And in the beginning, we thought, what sectors do we work in? And it was quite interesting. Everybody wanted to work in financial services and tech. For lack of a better word, they were deemed the sexy sectors. And then we mentioned tourism, and it was like, tourism? Why would we do anything in tourism? And we mentioned food, and equally shocking, why would we do anything in food? And once we explained to people that these are the actual numbers employed in these sectors in Ireland, and the impact it has in every little corner of Ireland, then people started getting it. And then Siobhan McManamy and some colleagues came in and briefed our board on the work of Tourism Ireland, and then it was agreed, and we've always worked on tourism. Because ultimately, as other people have said, it's about these people-to-people relations, and no better way to start. But there is a reputational thing, so that's one of the challenges. And Mary, you're with us from Solus. We talked a little about this, the leadership skills, the training, and also the sense that once you succeed as a leader in tourism, you can move to any other sector. It's not just, I no disrespect to tourism, it's not just I work in tourism. I'm a leader in the tourism sector, but my leadership skills can be used in all different sectors. Do you have any comments?
As you said, Mark, and nice to say hello to you. We've only talked on the phone, and I'm delighted to be here with everyone this morning. Yes, I work in Solus. Solus is the agency which funds, coordinates and strategically leads further education and training in Ireland. So we work across all the 16 education training boards and community organisations which provide educational opportunities throughout life for anybody in Ireland. Last year we reached 1 in 10 of the population, over 500,000 people. So it's a very big span, and we're continually innovating and developing to ensure that we are offering relevant, up-to-date, I suppose, opportunities which progress people in their careers, in their lives as citizens, but also we support business through apprenticeships, traineeships, and more recently we developed an initiative called Skills to Advance. In the last 4 years, we've upskilled over 70,000 people through Skills to Advance. And one of the sectors which avails most of it, or most avails of Skills to Advance, is the accommodation and food sector. So we have a very good relationship with the stakeholders in hospitality and tourism. And during COVID, we were approached by the Hotels Federation and other stakeholders, including Fáilte, to develop a leadership initiative, particularly at team leader and supervisory level, because there was a realisation, as Sarah said, that there was quite retrenchment in terms of the working population, and that it was going to be difficult to retain and attract new staff post-pandemic. So we worked together to identify critical areas of development in the whole area of leadership for people aspiring to be team leaders across all the different departments, and then going on into more senior management roles. Because I think it is acknowledged internationally and nationally that a lot of people who are very successful in business actually started in hospitality. It has a broad range of challenges for anybody in their career, and I think it's particularly attractive to people who have that business sensibility. So we found really remarkable stories through that work on that leadership initiative, in that people who were working away, in the various sections of a hotel or a restaurant, but they were spotted by their managers as having that particular team management or task management capability. that broader perspective in how the business was working, and they really cultivated that. So we had really big leaps for quite a number of people who were staying in the industry and wanted to develop their careers. We have some really good testimonials and videos which we captured around that time. And so we've continued with that work on leadership and management in conjunction with the industry, and it is one of our most in-demand areas. And more recently, we've extended into sustainability, and I'll maybe talk about that later, Martin, when you want to go on to that. But I think the key thing to know is that further education and training is there working cooperatively with the industry at all levels. We work at levels 1 to 6 on the National Qualifications Framework. We offer recognised qualifications which are not just recognised in Ireland but internationally, which is really important in a global industry like hospitality. So it is a very good career ground for people who have that, business ambition.
Could I ask you quite directly, and we can open it up later to the group if you want, about one of the core challenges of the tourism industry, particularly in the West? I've travelled a lot around Asia, and you get superb service. So many countries are just so good, and no matter where you go, where you stay, which restaurant you go to, whatever, it's superb service. In a lot of Europe and the US, it's a Western thing, like quality can vary enormously. You get one person in a hotel who's superb, and another person, to put it mildly, can be rude and give very bad service. Are you doing anything to kind of standardise the quality of service and this genuine sense of believing in the customer? Just as a frame of reference, a friend of mine became the first doctor in the Royal College of Surgeons. He was the first doctor, professor of general practice. And he was brought in because it was felt that doctors, much as they're academically brilliant and have the technical knowledge, sometimes they forget to treat the patients with dignity. And his key message all the time to these young, smart, brilliant students, not just from Ireland, from around the world, was when you strip the clothes off a patient, you strip away their dignity. So never forget to always keep their dignity. And these are people in very emotionally difficult, sometimes very tragic situations. So I asked them quite directly, I said, how many of them will remember that when they're out practicing, and how many will keep it as a value system? And he said, quite honestly, if I'm lucky, perhaps half will remember it. And if I'm very, very lucky, about 20% will practice it. It was quite worrying to me. He was talking in the firm belief that 80% of the medical students, when they became doctors, would not treat the students automatically with dignity. That's quite worrying, you know what I mean? So if I can refer that to the tourism sector, how do you put customers at the heart of it? With all respect to courses like medical courses, and how do you make sure in the industry that people are treated with the dignity which, of course, all customers deserve?
Well, this is a growing movement in business generally. It's not just peculiar to hospitality and tourism. I think you'd all have heard of the experience economy, and trying to distill the essence of what you're saying about the dignity of the person, or in education training we talk about the learner experience. Here we're talking about the customer experience. So it's really starting with that value in terms of understanding that the whole business depends on how you treat that person. And so in our training and development opportunities, we offer transversal skills training. That's the modern term for it. We used to call it soft skills or people skills. But we include that, and we integrate that across all of the learning experience, no matter how technical the training, that this has to be part and parcel. And we've just actually developed a new piece of research and development on transversal skills, which I think would be quite exciting, linked to the experience economy. And we're trying to modernise and upskill in relation to transversal skills for all sectors. But we will have functional applications, for particular industries. But I think a key way of then, it's not just about cultivating the attitude, as you said, the disposition and the capability to relate to people in an authentic way, but also it's how do you sustain that over time. So one of the things we found is that in training, and as in the workforce, having a mixed age range is very influential. So having older people, more experienced people on the team, having them in the learning environment is really critical in consolidating those skills. And it's interesting to see, in terms of the research, that while we do have younger people coming into the industry now, but also employers are beginning to realise the importance of loyalty and resilience. And they are looking to older people know, people who have retired even, people, you know, who would normally, we're changing our whole attitude, I think, as a society, internationally, in terms of how we look at older people, but looking at the value of their skills in terms of resilience, loyalty, people focus, and bringing them into the workforce. And the more the industry, hospitality and tourism, opens up in terms of flexible working arrangements, you know, and the increase in part-time working, you know, the management of the split shift situation, which can be very off-putting for some people. So it's about trying to look at the way the work is organised, as well as the skill set, as well as the profile of the team.
I think that's very good what you said. And again, all about diversity, different experience,
Yes.
different background. I was in a place recently where the first person who met me called me sir, happened to be an older gentleman, and then a younger guy called me dude. So I went from sir to dude within an hour, but I thought, okay, you know, I'm many things, dude is one of them, but okay, you know. Whatever works, I assume it was meant with respect. Okay, let's move on, because we're talking about that authentic being yourself, but treating people with dignity and having a true people focus, because what is the tourism business if it's not a people focus? And you were saying that people focus and love of Irish heritage, Mary Rose, that's what drove you to work in the sector. I mean, could you perhaps expand a little on what we're saying, and also then perhaps talk about, you know, before we get into later regenerative tourism, etc., that you brought up, the work that you actually do in MTU and the training you do, both in Tralee and here. You know?
Yeah. So I'm here with my colleague Noel, who runs the tourism and hospitality programs here in Cork. But I suppose for a number of years, we have been delivering tourism and hospitality programs. It is alarming that there's fewer and fewer students entering the sector from the CAO. So in particular, we would offer all programs to CAO students coming from Leaving Cert, but also we focus very much on working with industry. So we would have a number of programs that we run directly with industry. So for example, you can study hotel management while you work full-time in the industry, and you can come to us for blocks of study. So it's the earn and learn type model, apprenticeship type model. We work with a large hotel group in Ireland and England, and we actually go to their organisation and run their management programs for them. So it's about outreach, and it's about making education accessible to everybody, and not just new entrants, but those who are in the sector as well. And that suits the hospitality industry and the visitor attractions, because they're not losing their workforce to come to college. We just do it in chunks of study. So that has been working well. But also we constantly research and what are the new and innovative topics, I suppose, that need to be discovered, really. So that's where we'll move into the regenerative tourism maybe, and talk a little bit about that. So in the past, it's always been about sustainable tourism, and sustainable tourism is about doing less harm. But more and more globally, there's this discussion around regenerative tourism, and that's about intentionally setting out to do good. So you're looking at the tourism sector within a systems approach. So you're very much looking at our interdependence with nature. And it's about giving nature and community a voice at the table. So I'd put it out to all the industry bodies here to do what they do in Visit Flanders, which is when they have their council meetings, one person is nominated to speak on behalf of nature or to speak on behalf of community. So everything you do, you're saying, well, how is this going to affect our biodiversity? How is it going to affect our local community? And so our Masters in Regenerative Tourism addresses that. It looks at, you know, tourism has to be nature positive, it has to be community positive, visitor positive. So, you know, we're designing new programs around innovation, design thinking, so that we change the mindset around tourism development. We talked very much this morning around globalization and growth, and they're all really, really good. But if we don't mind the planet and mind our local communities, we won't have an industry. So it's really about getting that mindset where you start off thinking about those.
I think it's very useful what you're saying, and that congratulations to everyone in MTU, that student earlier, Ryan, who won the MasterChef in the US. Like, what an amazing young man. But what really resonated with me was he's quite honest, you know, thinking that you must love it, you must have the passion. You know, this is someone who loves food, you know. I may ask, many of these really smart young people all over Ireland, like many other places who are setting up their own restaurants, whatever. Like, are they coming out of your courses?
Absolutely, some of them are at some of the most prestigious restaurants here in Cork in particular. But we would encourage our students to travel as well, because that travel brings back great knowledge and skills. So anybody who does a tourism and hospitality course, they're guaranteed a job. You can walk out and you'll have several offers in the morning. And going back to careers and reputation, you know, very often people say, oh, it's a poor industry to work in. There's poor employers in every industry.
So.
But we're lucky in that it's an employee's market. So if you're not being treated well, you can go to somebody else. And it's great to see Fáilte Ireland delivering on the great places to work now and encouraging businesses to sign up to that. So I suppose the future's promising, but we need to constantly ask ourselves questions around, are we providing opportunities for upskilling and training? Yeah.
I think it's interesting what you're saying. And whereas in the West we're very used to very much kind of transactional relationships, and business is very much transactional. Asia's not like that, of course. Asia's very much, everything is relationship based. And if you get to know people and you kind of like each other and you trust each other, then you'll end up doing business. And if you stay the course, like any good partners, you know, and there are sometimes problems you overcome together, there's a huge loyalty built into that relationship as well. So that brings us then to the whole area of competency with China. And Johnny, could I ask you, I was just saying that doing business with China is founded very much on good personal relations. So it's really important for us here in Ireland to learn about Chinese language and Chinese culture, to try and understand the Chinese mindset, and to show the mutual respect necessary to build trust with Chinese partners, because that's what it's about. Have you any comments on this?
Okay.
Please.
Respected Ambassador Xiang Donghe, respected Chairman Alan, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm Jun Huang, the Chinese co-director of Confucius Institute at UCC. I'm delighted to be here today, and I want to say thank to my old friend, Director Martin, for the invitation. So, the Confucius Institute at UCC is established in 2007 in collaboration with Shanghai University. It is dedicated to promoting Chinese language and culture. We worked at the UCC and Middlesex University to offer Chinese courses for BA and MA students and others. We actively support Chinese language teaching in about 15 primary and secondary schools across Ireland. Our mission is to build future China competency, supporting Cork Island, Cork China and Island China relation through education. But today I want to say UCCCI play a key role in tourism and culture between Ireland and China. And our CI has an enormous potential in the near future. Why to say? I think the first is for our students. So our UCCCI teach over 5,000 students yearly in primary and secondary school, and about 115 university students and MA students in UCC and Middlesex. So till 2023, about 16,000 students in all learn Chinese language, including BA and MA students, majoring in Chinese language and business Chinese and computer science students. When they study, they know China well, such as Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen, other cities, and many good place, visiting place. So 17 years passed. I think many Irish students had been to China personally and all go there with his family. For example, we organized about 100 students go to China at the Easter camp every year. So this year we will about 26 students go to China, maybe next month. So every year we have this big group. And also we have more than 10 university students go to Shanghai University to learn for 1 year. So I want to say they can, if they go to China, they can introduce island well to Chinese people. So, and then they can invite many friends to come to island. So I think these students are the advocates to tell them about the island. So the second is about our Chinese teacher. So I want to say about our Chinese teacher contribution to promote the change and communication between China and island, particularly between Shanghai and Cork. So our institute is a hub for Chinese language and culture education. So till this year, we have about 300 teachers come from Cork, from China, from Shanghai University. So I think one Chinese people can affect many peoples, like me, my family, my relative, my many friends, so Low Island. And I also invite about 20 friends coming to island. So I have 300 students, so many people know island. Yeah. So the third is about our CI platform. So Cork and Shanghai have been twin cities since 25. And we had held numerous important events and activities between the two cities, from academic exchange to culture collaborations. These initiatives have helped bridge the gap between our cultures and have laid a solid foundation for long-term partnerships. By enhanced understanding of Chinese language and culture, we foster personal relationships and mutual respect, which are crucial for doing business with China. Our efforts help students and professionals develop the skills needed to engage effectively with Chinese partners, strengthening the ties between our countries. The fourth is I want to do. We are eager to work with tourism and hospitality sectors to create tailored Chinese language course. This course would equip staff with the skills to provide exceptional service to Chinese tourists. The return of Chinese tourists to Ireland offers tremendous opportunity for win-win partnerships. And the Confucius Institute is ready to support and advise you in the endeavor. So last, I want to give two suggestions. The first is about the Chinese position in school. So I want to Irish government can further promote Chinese language teaching in secondary school teaching position and encouraging more people to learn Chinese, communicate with Chinese people, and promote tourism and other business opportunities in Ireland. The second is about visa. So maybe Ambassador her to tell some about. So
The visa is always the issue. I have to be careful here now, Paul, before I come to you, because I'm in home territory, so I'm actually a UCC grad. And then after UCC, I came to CIT, then MTU, and finally ended up in UCD. So I'm at home with everybody, okay? But before we do that, do we have an open mic? John, I'd like to ask you to make some comments on the work of Cork County, because we're all familiar with Cork City and Shanghai, but Cork County have developed very strong relationships with the province of Jiangsu. And John, could you just talk about the last trip you were there and the kind of response in China, the kind of numbers when you went with the mayor, and that sense of understanding and cultural exchange between the two?
I suppose the first thing to say is that the reason that Cork County Council is in Jiangsu, excuse me, is, I suppose, it's just try to help the Department of Finance or Foreign Affairs to raise awareness about all things Ireland and what Ireland has to offer, to China, whether it's from a social, cultural, economic, or any other factor. So when I say we, it's a Cork City Council, Cork County Council, and Kerry County Council from the southwest of Ireland had a southwest strategy for the southeast of China, whereas the City Council have a relationship with Shanghai, we have a relationship with Jiangsu, and Kerry had a relationship with an adjacent province also. So our work really was to help the department to raise awareness, about Ireland. And I think we've made a contribution over the last 10 or 15 years that we have been there. I suppose, by having the mayor visit Jiangsu maybe once a year, we have been able to open some other doors for the likes of Enterprise Ireland, Tourism Ireland, IDA, in that they've joined with the delegations and they get to visit they get different type of access in the provinces that they might have had to work a little bit harder to get by virtue of a mayor to governor meetings and things like that. So we've been able to help the departments, to get out into the provinces as well. So what we're doing is look, it's a small contribution in a huge country, but I think we are making a small impact. And it's something that, whether it's our work with the Confucius Institute or, we undertake, I suppose, a lot of small local initiatives here also to support the work of Chinese businesses, Chinese families, things like that. That it's building an awareness of the importance of the links between China and Ireland and vice versa. So much of what we do is based in Ireland, but it's the annual visit to China, by the mayor makes a big difference also.
Thank you, John. And as you say, it just reinforces that meeting each other, seeing in person, seeing the places where your partners live, and and seeing their priorities. And you told me previously, John, about just the amazing response every time you go to China, the numbers, the preparation, the amounts of students who come to meet the mayor and hear the team present in Cork. Like, it's very impressive.
Yeah, well, look, we are, I suppose, almost not embarrassed, but we get fantastic access to, senior politicians. We get great access to the universities, but all that access it's just about building relationships as far as I'm concerned. It's not it's not business to business or organization to organization. Relationships are built person to person. And when you get to meet people, you find out that we have quite so much in common, whether it's an interest in our own history and our own culture, the same as the Chinese. I think the biggest link that I notice in China is the importance of family to Chinese people, exact same as it is here. You don't see those links maybe as strong elsewhere in Europe or elsewhere in the world. So it seems to be very easy for us to build person-to-person relationships. And off the back of that, then hopefully you start to build economic or social or cultural connections.
Well, it's exactly what you said. It's much easier to work with cultures where it's easy to build the relationships. And the fact that there are so many Chinese people in the room, thank you for being with us, that means a lot. Sarah, can I ask you, is the China Ready program still in place in Vault Ireland, or is it being resurrected, or what?
Well, the China Ready ours was actually the China Welcome program, and we launched that in 2019 when there's new direct flights to China, so there's an excellent opportunity for businesses to up their capability. And 300 businesses undertook that program. And then others went on to the Coaching Accredited program, which I believe is best in class. And my colleague Ashling in Tourism Ireland, so any businesses now who identify an opportunity, they go straight onto the Coaching program.
So it is still intact.
The China Ready was a kind of one-off, the China Welcome was a one-off program. We did 300 businesses at the time, but it's something we keep an eye on, in terms of how Tourism Ireland is marketing, and we keep an eye on any kind of capability gaps on the ground to see if it needs to be redone, so it was just freshly done before the pandemic.
Because maybe even locally in Cork, you could work with the Confucius Institute, who have all the teachers and the expertise in terms of tourism training. And because I remember 5 years ago, I had a great privilege. I was MC for an Irish government China-Ireland tourism event in Dublin. And it was just really, really interesting to see the sheer momentum. And of course, sadly then COVID happened, so we lost it. So we're all rebuilding those relationships. Paul, I'm very conscious of your good self. Could I ask you, please, when we were preparing, you said that sustainability in tourism is much, much more than environment only. It's based on investment and innovation in 4 dimensions, you said, including economic, social, environmental, and policy. And could I ask you just quickly kind of what work you're doing in that sector? Where does Ireland fit into this? And where does China fit in? Because you said China has clear advantages in all 4. Over to you.
Good. So I think I'm going to respond to each of the speakers here because
that's fine.
In answering this question, because so it is true. If we go back to definitions of sustainable development, go back to Brundtland, etc., sustainability, people think of it as environment. You know what I mean? Water, air, and so on. But the reality of it is it's a sustainability in livelihoods, sustainability in communities, societies, sustainability in governance and policy, and sustainability in environment, right? And what this project is really about is the synergies of those 4 dimensions and how you can, and this is the whole regenerative idea, how you can bring that about, right? So I guess I was fascinated by your comment of putting nature on the board, right? Because when you go into the General Assembly, there's one desk that ICUN run, and there's actually an ambassador for nature. His name is David O'Connor. He's an Irish-American, actually, right? And it's sad in a way, 5,000 seats, and here we are talking about sustainable development, and there's only one elephant in the room, basically, right? And that's David O'Connor, right? But where he could get his strength, and it's out there, is to make sure on the boards of universities, on the boards of agencies, governments, Department of Finance committees, that you put a representative of nature, just like you'd argue for a gender or a young person voice, have a voice of nature and somebody who's trained to represent nature, right? So I do think that that's quite important. And why I'm going to say that is that for me, just to tell you, my not only experience, so we were approached by I think it's called the World Travel and Tourism Council, and they have a global summit, right? And what they came to us, because we have a wide range of training courses and, kids in universities right across the world and so on, they wanted young delegates and they wanted them trained and to come. So we brought about, 500 young delegates right across the world to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And the whole idea was just the careers thing, just to say, look, you guys are starting to have expertise in this type of area. We need them. We need them in tourism. Open your eyes and come and have a look at what we're doing, right? The second thing they did is, can we teach on your programs? So we gave them a segment on the global classroom. So this is across 30 or 40 countries. We have Tsinghua University, we have UCD, etc., Harvard, Columbia University, etc. And they actually asked the students to help them write their strategic plan for the country, for Saudi Arabia. Right? What's your image of this? And it was all about breaking down preconceptions about what Saudi Arabia was and what you could do and so on. And it's just quite an interesting thing, right? This actor that's basically generating the positive synergies between these dimensions, right? Okay. And then what was the point?
4 dimensions of China. We're under time pressure. We need to finish. So. Final comment.
Final comment, yeah. So when I was thinking of, it was your comment actually, so did I ever work for Board Falta? And the answer is, anytime I organize a big international conference, I work for Board Falta, right? And you know what I mean? Because the hotels and, and it's true, when you're hosted in China, when you're hosted with the Confucius Institute, Li Ming Wang, etc., right? They always build a travel element into their program, right? And then it comes back to this idea that, again, you can't leave tourism on its own. You've got to be thinking of business. Like, do you think when business boards or directors come here, like, they play golf, they do things, right? The same with academics when they come here for conferences. So I think a way in which can build confidence is actually, particularly through universities or through business or through government meetings, that you add really serious board to events with them, like really serious. So knowing that people who are friends, people who get on together, appreciate cultures, you know, they're going to do more business, they're going to do more exchanges, etc. So not to think of it in isolation, to think of it with the other dimensions.
So it's all joined up. Thanks so much. Apologies, we're out of time. Before we finish, could I ask, just put your hand up. How many people in this room have Chinese passports? How many have Chinese passports? Interesting.
Chinese passports.
How many people have been in Ireland for more than 5 years? How many people are in Ireland for less than 5 years? Interesting. So most of you, you're essentially Irish Chinese. Look, we need to break. There's tea and coffee outside. Talk to the speakers. Talk to us networking. I'd ask the speakers to stay here just for a photo. Could we head outside for coffee? We'll have you back, please, at 12 o'clock. And for the Ambassador and Senator Jerry Busman. Thank you very much.